On April 15, 1853, Daniel Kanipe was born in Marion, Illinois, to Jacob and Isabella. Daniel was one of the 2 battalions from Custer's battalion that survived the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Although he was too young to join the Civil War, his older brothers Eli and Zephaniah served in the 58th North Carolina Infantry. Daniel, possibly influenced by his brother's military service, enlisted on August 7, 1872, in Company C, 7th United States Cavalry. During the Reconstruction era, the unit was stationed from 1870 to 1872 as an occupation force in Lincolnton. The next year, freshly promoted Sergeant Daniel traveled with his regiment to Yankton, South Dakota, which was then a part of the Dakota Territory, where he was stationed at Fort Totten. He participated in the Yellowstone expedition, engaging in numerous skirmishes with Sioux Indians. In 1874, he served with his regiment in the Black Hills expedition. Although officially presented as a scientific exploration of the area's wildlife and plants, many suspect that the true purpose was to assess the presence of gold in the Black Hills. The subsequent rush of gold-seeking miners and settlers sparked conflicts with the Sioux, setting the stage for the Sioux-Indian War of 1876. On May 17, 1876, Lieutenant Colonel George A. Custer led the 7th Cavalry into what is now Montana on a punitive raid against the Sioux. Nearly a month later, on June 25, 1876, his column arrived at a large Native American encampment along the Little Bighorn River. Underestimating the number of warriors within the camp, Custer opted for a frontal assault as his best strategy. He directed 1 battalion, Reno's, to flank the camp, while positioning another, Benteen's, in reserve. Custer himself led his battalion directly toward the native position. Company C stood at the forefront of Custer's unit. However, just before the attack, Captain Thomas Custer, brother of George, instructed Private Kanipe to deliver a message. "Go to Captain McDougal, who heads the pack train. Instruct him to move the pack train directly across the nation. If any packs come loose, cut them off and move quickly. There's a big Indian camp. If you see Captain Benteen, tell him to come quickly. There's a big Indian camp." Kanipe rode as fast as possible to reach Benteen's position in the rear. Soon after, Custer dispatched another messenger, bugler Giovanni Martini, an Italian immigrant known as John Martin, with a similar message. In no time, Custer's main battalion was under attack, followed closely by Reno's unit. Despite Kanipe and Martini reaching Benteen, Custer's battalion was already facing destruction. Benteen kept his battalion in a defensive stance and prevented Kanipe and Martin from returning to their units. By nightfall, the battle had largely concluded. Custer's entire battalion had been wiped out. Reno's men had suffered heavy losses, but managed to retreat to safety behind Benteen's rear position. And troops and Indian scouts from the 7th Cavalry had died in all, almost all of them from Company C, which Kanipe commanded. Kanipe continued to serve in the reorganized 7th Cavalry until his discharge in 1877. He wed Missouri Ann Wyckoff, the widow of his close friend Sergeant Edwin Bobo, who had died in the battle. She hailed from North Carolina and had married Bobo during the 7th Cavalry's time in Lincolnton. During a fundraising tour in September 1908, Kanipe and his spouse paid a visit to the Little Bighorn battlefield in support of the efforts to preserve the 7th Cavalry men graves. They were photographed alongside a Sioux veteran of the battle at the tombstone of Sergeant Edwin Bobo. Throughout his writings after the war, Kanipe showed no animosity toward the Native Americans, instead portraying them as worthy adversaries. He passed away in Marion on July 18, 1926, at the age of 73. Kanipe was frequently sought after to share his experiences at Little Bighorn by authors and historians like Walter A. Camp and Earl A. Brinnenstuhl. "I have seen and talked with 8 commissioned officers and 32 enlisted men who were in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and your memory excels them all," Camp once said in praise of him. "Not even half of what you remember about the struggle and expedition is recalled by 6 persons in the entire group." As one of the final men under Custer's command to speak with the Custer brothers directly, Kanipe became well known among Old West aficionados and scholars studying Custer's last stand. Numerous versions of the conflict from the 20th century were based on his own accounts.